This time of year is always interesting here in my little It's Not Rocket Science corner of the internet because I have the privilege of being connected to so many of you all across the world, but really the majority of you listeners and people that I'm conversing with in my DMs, you're mainly in the United States. And even just within the United States, there is such a variety in terms of like where people are in their school year and where their end point may be. Like some of you are wrapping up in 3 weeks. Some of you, it's more like 6 to 8 weeks. Some of you are teaching AP science right now, and you're in the thick of AP exams, especially happy Cinco de Mayo, I have to say to all you AP biology teachers. If you're listening to this episode on drop day, that's May 5th, and that's the AP bio exam this year. So I hope it's going well. I hope all of your students are labeling every part of their FRQ question. They're being clear in their responses, and they're not having any test anxiety or panic, but they're really doing well analyzing those models I'm sure they're getting in the data and answering every question. So hats off to all you AP bio teachers today on exam day especially. But not just AP sciences, some of you teach end of course exams. And so you're in that part of the year where you're scrambling because you just have like a few more weeks of review, or maybe you're trying to finish covering all the content before your students sit down for this high stakes test, And then again, there's some of you that don't have any of these standardized tests. And like I said, you still have 6+6-ish weeks left of school. You're like, we're not even writing our end of year countdown on the whiteboard yet. That's how far away this feels. So wherever you may be as you're listening to this, whether I'm in your AirPods while you're cleaning up your classroom or grading papers, or I'm in the speakers of your car as you head to school this morning, or maybe you're folding laundry and I'm just coming out of your phone speaker. I just hope today's episode encourages you because I think this is going to address a feeling that all of us will have at some point, if not at multiple points in our careers. And it's this feeling of honestly just getting a little bored. I've had some of y'all reach out to me in DMs, and this was something that got submitted at the beginning of the year when I sent out my podcast survey. Just this idea of like, what's your strategy when things just kind of feel stale? And maybe you don't have a lot of time to invest in like revamping your curriculum, or you just don't have the energy you had your first year teaching. Like, what do you do when things feel a little boring? And I want to address too that some of you are like instantly checking out because you're like, I'm too busy to be bored. And I think there's a difference from busyness and boredom. Like you can be really busy and still feel bored with what you're doing. Your lessons can still feel stale and not that exciting. Like you can be looking over your week and being like, there's nothing I'm really like pumped for this week to do with my students. And so if you felt any or all of these feelings today, I'm so glad you're here. This episode is for you. I'm going to share 8 really simple tips for when your teaching job is feeling stale, maybe a little boring, and they're all things that have happened to me. And so I hope that they encourage you and you don't feel alone or any sort of shame about having these kinds of feelings. I feel like this is so very normal, regardless of what your career is, but especially for us teachers, especially if you're teaching the same thing over and over and over again. So let's get into it. This is Secondary Science Simplified, a podcast for secondary science teachers who want to engage their students and simplify their lives. I'm Rebecca Joyner from It's Not Rocket Science. As a high school science teacher turned curriculum writer, I am passionate about helping other science teachers love their jobs, serve their students, and do it all in only 40 hours a week. Are you ready to rock the time you spend in your classroom and actually have a life outside of it? You are in the right place, teacher friend. Let's get to today's episode. First things first, I want to address the concept of burnout because burnout is also different from being bored. I already said busyness is different from boredom. Burnout is also different from boredom. And so if you're feeling like burned out, like the candle has been burning at both ends, you're just limping towards the finish line at the end of this year, I have a different podcast episode for you that I want you to specifically listen to. It's episode 121. Go back and listen to it. I believe that's from spring of this past year, but it may have been the year before that. I walk you just through some questions to consider to help you know, like, hey, are there things we can do now to address this burnout? Is this true burnout? Do I need to make a change? What does that change look like? So that whole concept of burnout is all addressed in episode 121. Today, I just want to specifically address that idea of like things feeling stale, feeling very like beige, just feeling not pumped about what you're doing. So I'm going to share 8 tips for you. And I want to say I have literally been here. So this doesn't just happen to teachers who've taught for 30 years. I think especially if you're in a semester block teaching schedule where you have new classes, at the beginning of the year in August, and then you get new classes in January, it's like you're squishing 2 years of experience into one calendar year, which is I actually loved because I felt like it gave me opportunities to change and improve my craft a little bit more quickly. But it also led itself to a little bit more boredom. My first semester teaching, I had general biology, I had an honors biology, I had honors physical science. And then second semester, I had 2 sections of general biology and 1 section of honors biology, no physical science. Then the next year, basically my whole career, if I go through every single year, I always had at least 2 sections of general biology. Sometimes I had 3. Sometimes I had an honors also. Sometimes I had an AP. Sometimes there were these other courses that are not even related to biology added in. But the general biology especially is where things started to feel boring for me because I was teaching it over and over again, semester after semester, starting over, especially at my first school when we were on semester block, and then also having multiple sections of it. I was literally emailing with the teacher the other day, and she has 5 sections of general biology. That's what she teaches. Maybe it was even 6. And she was like, that's what I teach all day, every day, the same classes. Because we were talking about some grading hacks. And it's unique because I rarely come across someone who has so many sections of the exact same prep. So I just want to encourage you, like, this happens and I've been there. So my very first recommendation is, especially this time of year, consider if you do have the capacity to take on a new prep. This is the perfect time of year to bring it up to your admin. Even if contracts went out last month, like there's still so much change that happens over the summer. There's new hires. There's things that are going on. There's moving parts. This is the time to make your move and maybe bring in an elective science that you get really passionate about. Or maybe if you're like, I'm not ready. I'm a biology teacher to like throw in earth science or something just like totally rogue, even if you love it. Like if that's the course you've always wanted to teach. Maybe you've had dreams of starting a forensics course, but you're like, I just don't have the capacity to do it. Maybe see if you can just do another level of the same course that you teach. So like I said, you teach general biology, maybe see if you can get one section of honors or 1 section of AP. I've been hearing a lot of chatter in Facebook groups recently about AP courses getting divided among multiple teachers. So traditionally, you got one person, they may teach 1 to 3 sections of like AP chemistry, but now saying, okay, different teachers are each going to get a section of chemistry, which I think is honestly super wise in terms of long-term consistency if teachers are moving or just for collaboration. I just think it's a great idea. But even just seeing if you can get a section of something that's still in your wheelhouse content-wise, but will push you a little bit more by stretching the level in which you're teaching. I just found for me, even that second semester, getting honors biology added to my plate, it was really exciting for me because it even just that was like, okay, this is something new, but it's not crazy outrageous. It's not going to be a crazy amount of extra work, but it got my creative juices flowing. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but creative work requires momentum. And so if you're feeling like your job is just stale right now and a little boring, you've just lost your momentum. And so you've lost some of your creativity. And so all is not lost. You can get this back, but we just kind of got to get moving again. All my physics teachers know momentum is mass times velocity. You've got the mass already. We got to get you some velocity. We got to get you in motion. And then it's going to start picking up steam a little bit and it won't feel as hard to come up with the new ideas. And that's what I found when I taught honors biology. Even just having that one new-ish prep that was just kind of like a little adjacent prep, if you will, it revived me a little bit enough to give me some more ideas, to push me. The questions they asked got my brain thinking more, got my wheels turning, helped me come up with some new ideas for CP as well. And so even just considering something like that, this is a great time of year to do that. So that's my first tip. Consider a new prep if you have capacity. Now, the original person who asked this question specifically said, I do not want to start teaching a new class. Okay, so I get it. That's why I'm starting with that tip, because I know so many of you, you're bored and you're you're exhausted, you're busy. You're like, I cannot add a new prep. That's like the worst case scenario here. I hear you. So I have 7 other tips, okay? Second suggestion is, again, one you're going to expect me to say. So I want to go ahead and just throw it out there because you're waiting for me to say this. But y'all, get some new resources. I know you don't have time to rewrite your entire curriculum. Okay, I get it. It takes so much time. I do it for a living. This physical science revamp that I've been working on, it's taking so much longer than I ever could have predicted it taking. Again, it took a while to get my creative juices flowing. Like, I just get that, okay? But you can invest in other resources. I have an episode 153 is all about making boring topics more engaging. So first, just assess, like, is this a boring topic? And that's why my work feels stale right now. Like, this is just a unit I don't necessarily love. I've never loved it. I think those are especially the topics worth investing in resources for, even if it's just one new lab, one new inquiry investigation, something like that, that'll get you more excited. Because those are the ones where you're like, maybe you've never liked teaching, evolution. Okay, now's the time then to find someone who does and thinks it's really interesting and see what they think about it. When this airs, I don't know 100% sure because I'm recording this a month in advance, but typically, as long as I've been doing this is year 10, TBT has had a site-wide sale for Teacher Appreciation Week, which is the first week of May typically. It's usually the sales on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. Sometimes they switch that up. I'm anticipating there being a sale this week, though. You can save 25% on resources. This is a great time to be like, hey, what can make this a little bit more exciting? Put a little pep in my step in terms of teaching this topic. So look into that. If you're like, well, I don't have the money to invest in resources, I don't have time to like audit if it's worth buying this one or whatever, spend some time this summer doing this. Maybe your summer's 4 weeks off, maybe it's 8 weeks off. I don't know, but make that one of the things you're going to do this summer is say, hey, especially if it's a unit or a time of year or something where you're like, I always just get so over it by now. Okay, let's figure out how we can put some pizzazz in there, put a little pep in your step. And I know for me, it's kind of like when you have a new outfit, not even a whole new outfit, new pair of pants, new pair of earrings, new pair of shoes. It just kind of like gives a little razzle dazzle to everything else that's in your closet. That's exactly how I feel like it is when you get that new lab or that new project that you're excited to implement with your students. So I recommend investing in new resources. Again, even if you don't have the money, even if you can't buy things on sale this week while they're on sale, get in some teacher Facebook groups this summer, see what things are going on in there. Now, the hard thing about when you just grab a freebie from someone in one of these groups is like there's no implementation instructions, there's no support. That can make it feel a little bit more overwhelming, which I get. But sometimes even just getting the ideas gets you going with what you need from there and it'll help you. So let's be proactive about that. Do some things right now, but also plan this summer to make some time to do that. We're going to be talking more about this next week. We're going to start a little end of the year series. We're going to talk specifically about your resources. So stay tuned for that. But I couldn't not mention that, especially if this is sale week, which I'm anticipating it being sale week. Okay, third suggestion is I have found when things get stale, oftentimes it's because the students are not giving me a lot of back and forth. My classroom has always been very dynamic, very discussion oriented. My personality is when they're kind of lagging on energy, when they're not giving me a lot, I just give way more and I become this like performer. And I think it's because I went to art school for 9 years. So just like being the center of the stage in that sense in my classroom, like that felt natural to me to do. But then that gets kind of boring because it's like every class you just feel like want, like you're just always having to bring the energy, bringing the vibes, if you will, like you're just carrying all of this. And it can be a lot. So my third tip is intentionally shift towards student-centered resources and pedagogy rather than teacher-centered. Again, this may not be your problem, but I have just found in the past that my default is to pick up the slack here when my students don't have a lot of energy, especially if you're having a lot of senioritis in your classroom, whether they're freshmen or actually seniors. We all get this like spring fever senioritis and no one wants to be there or do anything. So I would then, instead of like trying to compensate, I would push even more back on them to make them bring more to the table. Okay. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. First, I have a podcast series I did when I first started this podcast, all about student-centered pedagogy. It starts at episode 29. So I'll link that in the show notes, or you can scroll back to 29 and then just listen to the next few in order. Now, especially those of you who are like in the throes of review season, like please do not be doing all of this review yourself. Make the review about your students. I have an entire episode about that as well. It's episode 72. I have a Teach the Class project in my TBT store. It's like $3 normally and it's 25% off. It's on sale right now, but it's a great like end of year review where your students are in charge of all of the review. You put them in groups, they each get a unit and they're responsible for coming up with the review for that day. It buys you so much time and it's also a great exercise for them. I'm typically strategic when I make the groups for that. And I go through and I look up the students, what they got their lowest test grade on for that semester, what unit, and I put them in that review group to like help them review that specific content. So I find that is a really great way to like get students doing some more things up front. So definitely get your students more involved. And that podcast series will give you like a gajillion more ideas than I'm going to do right now. My fourth recommendation is to collaborate with another teacher. And this can look a lot of different ways, but I've really found I'm definitely like a verbal processor. And so I just think getting some ideas, getting some inspiration, having conversations with other teachers is so encouraging and can help things feel a little bit more exciting. They can give you some ideas too. Okay, so this can look like talking to someone in your school in your content area. So in the science department, or if you have someone else in your school who teaches the subjects that you teach, you need to be talking to them, seeing what they're doing. Even if you think they're the worst teacher ever, they might have some like one-off things here and there that are really, really great. Get some ideas from them. I also think there's an opportunity to collaborate with teachers in your school outside of your content area. So for example, talk to the math teacher. I remember collaborating with my AP stats teacher at my school when I was teaching AP Bio and saying, hey, like we need help in AP Bio with some of the stats stuff. Can you come up with like some sort of like mini unit and we can come up with it together where I'm going to give you some good data and I'll help you come up with the scenarios that we're going to write and you're going to help my students learn the stats that they're going to need to analyze these scenarios. Like that's an exciting thing you guys can do together. Talk with an English teacher at your school and collaborate on some sort of cross-curricular writing project that students can do. This is also stuff that will get your admin fired up because they tend to love these kinds of things. Also, if you're like, I'm at a tiny school and I teach English and math and science, okay, talk to someone in your district, in your content area. See if there's a contact person or look up other high schools in your district. Look up the biology teacher, 2 high schools over within the same county and say, hey, like, what are you up to? I'm bored. Give me some ideas. Like, I just think it's so great to connect with people geographically near you, but also look in a Facebook group. This is a great opportunity to go in one of those national chemistry teacher Facebook groups and say, hey, like I'm bored. I'm teaching solutions and I'm over it. I'm teaching acids and bases and it's just kind of like wah. Anyone want to collaborate and share ideas? Anyone have some things that have been really exciting for you when you've taught this? I would love to hear from you and just get some inspiration in those groups. If you're too nervous to even post, then just search. You'll find a lot of good ideas in there. Collaboration is really, really helpful, especially if you're like a social person or a verbal processor, like I mentioned. Maybe you're just feeling isolated in your job and having some companionship there would help to kind of spice things up a little bit. My 5th tip is to do something out of the norm, especially this time of year. I feel like, yeah, there's the pressure of like standardized tests and stuff, but after that, I feel like there's kind of like more no rules vibes than there is other times of year. So do something different. Plan a guest speaker. I loved when my sister was able to come in town and speak with my students. She's a vascular surgeon, but she was able to talk to them all about medical school, all about the prereqs of that, all about like what her day-to-day life was like. It was just exciting to have someone come in and talk to students. Plan a field trip. See if there's anywhere you can go in your area. Maybe there's a program like where we live. I mean, I live in the low country of South Carolina, so near the water. So there's always like kayaking expeditions and fun things like that. But look into some of those field trips and stuff that could be exciting. Something that's fun for you too. That's the priority. And it's also fun for your students. Even if you can't do that, something as simple as just going outside. I talk about this so much over the years, but like just get a class set of clipboards, okay? You can get 30 on Amazon for like $15 to $20. And you can just start taking your work outside this time of year. I'm telling you, the vitamin D will revive you, okay? It revives me. Maybe even do something where like, okay, we're going to go do this lab in gym today or in the hallway or in the breezeway, or swap classrooms with someone. Like if you have a trash classroom and someone else has a lab, like see if they'll swap with you on their test day and you can do a more fun, more labor intensive, equipment heavy lab because they actually have the lab equipment to do it. Like just a change of scenery, a change out of the norm is super helpful. Okay, so far, consider a new prep, invest in new resources, shift towards student-centered resources, collaborate with another teacher, do something out of your norm. My sixth recommendation is take a PD course. Sometimes, again, we just need someone to infuse and inject some energy into us, okay? There's so many things that can get you excited here. If you teach an AP course and you haven't been to an AP Summer Institute in 4 years or more, that's what you should be doing this summer. It was so helpful for me teaching AP Bio. I highly recommend. Also, I recommend searching in teacher Facebook groups for ideas. I think a lot of times we're just looking for like, what's like an online course I can take for renewal credits, and we're not, that excited about it, but we're just trying to check the box. Try to find something that feels exciting to you. I have a free course called Labs When Limited. It's all about doing labs when you have limited time, limited space, limited energy, and limited resources. Those are the 4 little mini lessons that we address. It's totally free. I'll link it in the show notes. You can take that. Maybe that'll just even give you some more ideas to get you excited. I have a bunch of other PD courses all within my Secondary Science Simplified umbrella. I'll link those too. But again, search in some teacher Facebook groups and see what courses people are taking. That might get you some exciting ideas. My 7th tip is to audit your job. So speaking of courses, my core values mini course, it's the first unit in my Secondary Science Simplified virtual PD course bundle. It's all about your core values. But I have this spreadsheet that is, honestly, it's iconic. I added it recently. So if you're listening and you took Secondary Science Simplified one of the first 2 summers live with me before it was like a recorded course, you should re-download it because this is in there and it's awesome. But essentially, if you don't want to buy that, I get it. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to list every single part of your job, every single task that you have, and then you're going to label each of those tasks. First, you are going to label them green, yellow, or red. Green are the tasks that give you life or give you energy. Yellow are the neutral tasks. They don't really do anything for you. You don't have any type of feelings about them. Red are the tasks that suck the life out of you. So we're going to label things green, yellow, red. Then we're going to go through and we're going to label them with a 1, 2, or 3. Okay, so 1 means you and only you can do this task. 2 means you most likely should do it, but you could bring in someone to help you, or you might be able to simplify this a little bit with some outside help. 3 is this is something that you could easily train someone else to do, or even if it's not easy to train them, with a little training, you could get someone else doing this for you. Example, someone making your copies. Anyone could do that. Any of your students can make your copies if you just give them 5-minute lesson on how to do it, okay? So you go through and you label all these things on your job, and first just look at it. Okay, when you do my spreadsheet, it gets all organized for you, but you can just do this on a piece of paper with a highlighter. Look at it and see how much green there is, how much yellow, how much red. Start there. My feeling is if you're listening to this podcast because you resonated with the title, you're probably seeing a lot of yellow and red. We need to figure out ways to minimize those things and then do more green. Because when you're doing more green, you're going to be in your zone of genius. You're going to be in your joy spot. You're going to be getting these little glimmers of happiness and they're going to be filling your cup. And so we want you to do green things. And so let's start by looking at the yellow and reds and the things that are yellow, red, and 3. 3 meaning someone else could be doing this. And let's start outsourcing and trying to get some of these things off of your plate. Whether that's using your time this summer to get your school to implement a teacher assistant program where students take a 0 credit hour course, essentially. Some schools do a 1 credit hour and it's a pass fail, but it'd be a 0 credit hour study hall type of course. But they get to put on their college resume that they had however many hours of, that they would sit in your classroom of community service. And then you get that person to help you with some of these tasks. So I highly recommend auditing your job. Even just that exercise alone is going to really be really revealing for you of some things. So audit your job. And then my last recommendation, my 8th tip is to get organized. Okay, now this may seem confusing. You're like, I'm bored and my job feels stale. This has nothing to do with organization. But it could just be that you're just on cruise control and you need just something to kind of jolt you out of your everyday rhythm. And so I really want to encourage you to get organized with your resources and how you're organizing those, your classroom, like the physical space you're teaching in, and also get organized with your procedures and the way you're managing your classroom. Do some of that work now to change up what your classroom could look like for the rest of the school year for sure, but especially next school year. And that's a series we are going to be entering in for the rest of May. And we're going to do end of the year organized, okay? And we're going to walk through each of these things so you just feel like you're in a really solid place organizationally so that you're ready for a fresh start next school year, even if you are kind of going to limp into the end of this school year. Hopefully this will kind of energize you for that. So today's take-home challenge is to choose one of these 8 tips to get started with. We'll work backwards. Get organized, audit your job, take a PD course, do something out of the norm, collab with another teacher, have more student-centered resources to end this year out. Invest in new resources. You got nothing and you got no inspiration. Take advantage of hopefully there's a TBT site-wide sale this week. And then consider maybe adding in a new prep if that's something if you're teaching. You've been teaching the same thing over and over for years. This might be something that really, really reinvigorates you. And if you are not sure where to start, if you listen to this and you're like, I still don't know, Rebecca, DM me on Instagram, y'all. It's not rocket science. That's my Instagram handle. Rebecca Joyner's my name. You'll see it. Say, hey, I listened to episode 181. Here's how I feel stale. What do you recommend? And I'll give you some personalized recommendations. Most likely, especially if I'm busy with my kids, I'll just send you a voice memo back because that's faster. And every time I do this, people are like, I feel like I just got my own personal podcast episode. So you're welcome. I can send you a personal podcast episode in the form of a 60-second voice memo on Instagram. So feel free to DM me. I would love to help you. And I reference a lot of other episodes that you should check out, courses, things like that. And you can find clickable links to those in the show notes at itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/episode 181. Or if you just go to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com and search board, this should come up and you'll find the show notes right there. Okay, if you have not left a review for the podcast yet, today is your day. This is how you can invigorate me, okay, from feeling stale about recording this podcast over and over again. Give me a review. It feels so great to read your reviews and hear from you guys. But leave a review if you haven't, especially if your job is feeling a little stale, but now you feel like you have at least one idea you're excited to kind of run with from here. Let me know. Leave a review. All right, teacher friends, that wraps up today's episode. If you're looking for an easy way to start simplifying your life as a secondary science teacher, head to itsnotrocketscienceclassroom.com/challenge to grab your classroom reset challenge. And guess what? It's totally free. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you here next week. Until then, I'll be rooting for you, teacher friend.